What exactly do you know about the Iron Lady of the Caribbean?
My name is Devonne Adanna and I have been gifted the talent of storytelling. If you want to hear tales of Caribbean courage, meet the heroes and heroines of the Caribbean diaspora, and be exposed to Caribbean wisdom through our many proverbs and sayings, then let me welcome you to the Devonne Adanna experience. Like this video and subscribe to this channel to get more Caribbean storytelling content just like this.
Okay, so you might know that she is from Dominica, and you might know that she was the Caribbean's first elected female prime minister. And I know about you, but I want to know more.
Promise I'll let you get back to the video, but I had to tell you that around here we celebrate Women's History in the month of March. So here are the stories of 3 Caribbean women who changed world history. Dame Eugenia Charles of Dominica, Elsa Goveia of Guyana, and Jennifer Hosten of Grenada. Keep watching to hear the stories of these remarkable Caribbean women. Now, back to it.
Now let's discover a few more interesting stories about Dominica's Dame Mary Eugenia Charles. She was born on May 15, 1919, and she was a woman of many firsts. She was Dominica's very first female lawyer, and she was also the world's first black woman to be elected to the highest office of her country anywhere in the world. Now, Dame Charles was from a fishing village called Point Michel, and she was born into considerable wealth. But our wealth didn't come just so. It was gained through dint of thrift and industriousness. You see, Mamo, as she was affectionately called, was the descendant of free colored people. And her father inherited a small estate in Dominica, which he then grew into a thriving fruit export business, at one point even becoming one of the wealthiest men on the island. In fact, her father, who was called J.B. Charles, was actually the first man of color to own a bank in the Eastern Caribbean. It was called Penny Bank. You see, the Charleses didn't believe in wasting time or money. Their family mottos were, earn your living and live beneath your means. By the time Dame Charles gets to the London School of Economics, where she would eventually get her LLM, it's 1946, and a new union is forming, one that promotes the interests of West Indian students in Britain, and who were deeply immersed in matters relating to colonial freedom. The group is called the West Indian Students' Union, and according to this book, some of the Caribbean's foremost leadership in the 1960s and 70s would actually call themselves members of the WISU. People like Guyana's Forbes Burnham, Barbados's Errol Barrow, Grenada's Maurice Bishop, and Jamaica's Dudley Thompson and Norman Manley. So hear this now. When Dame Charles and her siblings were kids, they never got any toys for Christmas presents. What they would get was an opportunity to reap their grandfather's coffee plot. Whatever loose coffee they did find, they would put out to dry and then sell. And that's how they would earn their money for their Christmas entertainment. Now, according to this article, Mamo loved her carnival. In her youth, she would go to Trinidad to experience carnival there. And she did love her calypso. Apparently, Sparrow was her favorite calypsonian. But she also loved calypsonians from Dominica as well. Wizard, Rabbit, and I think Spider. There's even this funny story told on the LSE website, quoted from something she had written. It was after one night of particularly good fun that she had at some New Year's Eve party at LSE in 1948. This is what she had to say. Boy, did I enjoy that. And did I let myself go? A fellow barrister of mine told me that he thinks I let down the profession with the amount of jiving. But I didn't care. I told him, for after all, when I get down to carnival at home, I will do a lot more than that. And let me leave you with just one more Dame Eugenia Charles quote to ponder this Women's History Month. Men have always been permitted to be people. We have just recently made it. Thank goodness for Elsa Goveia, because before this woman, Caribbean history was, well, quite literally boring. You see, before her, when Caribbean history was taught, it was usually taught as like a collection of activities that the Europeans did in the Caribbean region. And it was usually only focused on the economics of slavery. And when our girl Elsa V got on the scene, she was like, nah, it had to have more to this than that. Elsa Goveia was the Caribbean's premier social historian. So let's explore some of her most outstanding achievements. She is born in what was then the colony of British Guiana on April 12, 1925. And she was a legend in her native Guyana before she even turned 20. Her family was middle class, which opened her up to the rare opportunity of education at a time in Guyana when not even males were really being sent to school like that. She attended the very prestigious, now 127-year-old St. Joseph's Girls' School. Upon leaving St. Joseph's, she shatters her very first glass ceiling. She becomes the first woman to win Guyana's National Scholarship Prize in 1944. The scholarship finances her higher education in English history at University College London. There, she tops the class, graduating with first-class honors and shattering yet another glass ceiling. She becomes the first West Indian to win the much sought-after Pollard Prize. Now, this is only awarded to the absolute best, the creme de la creme of English history. So impressed was her senior professor that he wrote to the director of colonial students describing Elsa V in one word: remarkable. While Elsa is away at college in London, groundbreaking educational strides are being made closer to home. In 1948, Mona, Jamaica welcomes its very first student at what was then called University College of the West Indies. So the Irving Commission is really the founding vision of what we now call University of the West Indies. And in that document, there was a very specific request. And that was that there was a critical need for a professor of Caribbean history. Now, bear in mind that really no such thing existed before this request. And honestly, there really was only one woman for the job. In 1950, Elsa V takes up the post and becomes the very first professor of Caribbean history anywhere in the world. It's a title that she would become inextricably linked to for the next 30 years until her death and beyond to present day. Some of the titles from her groundbreaking research include Historiography of the British West Indies, the West Indian Slave Laws of the 18th Century, and Slave Society in the British Leeward Islands at the end of the 18th century. Let me leave you with this Elsa V quote to ponder this Women's History Month. Knowledge of the past must play a part in our liberation from the bonds of the past. Our history is not dead knowledge. Its significance for us is vital and immediate. Quite literally, before Jennifer Hosten, there were none. This Grenadian beauty was the first ever Black woman to win the world's longest running international beauty pageant, Miss World. And hers is the story of fate meeting preparation. Here are 6 remarkable stories of perseverance from the life of Jennifer Hosten, the world's first Black beauty queen. On 31st, 1947, Jennifer Josephine Hosten would have been 8 years old when she survived her very first hurricane. Hurricane Janet, which hit Jennifer's native Grenada in September of 1955, would be the first in modern recorded history to claim the lives of over 1,000 people across the Caribbean. It would also do about $65,095 worth in damage. And though the hurricane devastated the island, Jennifer would talk about her childhood and her upbringing as a really unique and special one. She said growing up on St. George's in Grenada was like growing up in one big extended family, one where everyone took an interest in whatever the children were doing. And it's likely this sense of community that really helped Jennifer's family and Grenada as a whole rebound from Hurricane Janet, but then also quickly rebound after Hurricane Ivan, which hit the island another 49 years later in 2004. Sometimes it takes one conversation to change the trajectory of your entire life. So bam, Jennifer is an air hostess on what was formerly called British West Indian Airways, or BW. She's based in Trinidad at the time, and of course she's accustomed to all manner of celebrity coming on board her flights as she's working. On one particular flight is Miss Guyana, on her way to Miss World. Now in the interview, Jennifer doesn't tell us if it is 1969 Miss Guyana or if it's 1970 Miss Guyana. 1969 Miss Guyana was Pamela Lord, who would place 4th at the Miss World competition that year, and then 1970 Miss Guyana was Jennifer Wong, who I think placed in the top 15 of Miss World when Jennifer Hosten won. That's a mouthful. Aside, Jennifer in she hot BB uniform, and they asked if her and Miss Guyana could take a picture together. And of course, as ladies do, they get to talking, and Miss Guyana is like, "Where you from?" So of course, Jennifer is like, "Well, I'm from Grenada." She's like, "So who are they sending up for Miss World?" And Jennifer was like, "Well, I don't think we'll send anybody for that." Anyway, when the flight is over, Jennifer picks up a newspaper and heads to the hotel to bed down until her next flight. As luck would have it, the front page of the newspaper that Jennifer picked up has on the front, Grenada decides to send representative to Miss World. Well, of course, the rest is history. Now, all you need to understand the controversy that was the 1970 Miss World competition. I mean, firstly, there are 2 delegates from South Africa. Why? Apartheid, no? The white delegate, Gillian Jessop, enters the contest under the Miss South Africa sash. The black delegate, who is Pearl Jansen, she enters under a Africa South sash. Just messy. Then what was then the newly formed Women's Liberation Movement, they storm into the competition, heckle Bob Hope, who is the host, and throw flour on the audience and a whole set of craziness. Now, they were doing that because they felt that the competition was a disgrace to women everywhere. And this is 1970. So when Jennifer took part, they were still taking your measurements in order to enter the competition. At the time of winning, Jennifer was at 37, 23, 36. Now, in true Caribbean woman fashion, Queen Jennifer does not sit down on her laurels once she becomes Miss World. Here are just a few of the things she's accomplished since then. She becomes a diplomat for not just 1, but 2 countries. She was Grenada's High Commissioner to Canada, and was also Canada's diplomat to Bangladesh. Most people lucky to be an ambassador for just 1. She also goes back to school as an adult, gets her master's, and ultimately becomes a psychotherapist. She and her husband own a block of studio apartments on Grand Anse Beach in Grenada, which I believe they've now sold. She publishes a book about her experiences at the Miss World competition, which is adapted from her actual real diary that she kept while she was going through the experience. It's then made into a movie called Misbehavior that was released in 2020. And then, as if that's not enough, she publishes another book that becomes the authority on the effect of the North American Free Trade Agreement on the Commonwealth.
I want to bring
Caribbean.
you more stories of Caribbean courage.
I
But
mean,
in
at
order
this
to
point,
do that,
the
I need to
question
know where you're
really
from.
is there anything
So comment
that
your
Jennifer
country
cannot
or your
do?
flag,
The last
and
thing I
look
want
out
to
for a
leave you with
story
is
of
this.
Caribbean courage
Jenny
from
wasn't
your
playing
island
when
real
she
soon.
entered the Miss World
And you
competition.
might as well like the
While the
video,
other
subscribe to the
contestants were
channel, and
sleeping
share
in
this
London,
with
you
a
know what she
Caribbean
was
person
doing?
you know.
She was learning how to go
Now,
up
back to
and
the
down the
story.
steep steps on the stage. And they, while their companions slept, were upward toiling through the night. Take a look at what I mean.